Okay, so this is 9.1 over translation. So this is going to be like just sliding figures. So like when you guys see my pen up here, right? Like I have my pen. When I slide it across my paper, did that pen change? What if I slide it like down this way? Did that pen change? No, right? It's still the same pen. It's just in a new location, okay? So that's really what we're going to be focusing on, just moving things to different locations. So the first two words we're going to talk about, we'll use this whole unit. The first one is image. This is the figure after a transformation. So kind of like the second figure. Robot. So the robot would be the image. The pre-image would be the car. Okay? So like, look, use your English skills, pre, before. So the pre-image is the original figure, what you're starting with. Okay, questions about that? Pre-image, image, difference between the two? Okay. So isometry, we're not going to use that word too much, but just know that just like my pen, when I move my pen on the paper, right, the pen is not changing. Until the very last section, none of our shapes are going to change. So if you have a triangle that looks like this, that triangle should not change at all, except just it might be flipping or like turning, but it's still the same triangle. So in this section, we're focusing on translations, which is sliding a figure. So with the translation, every point on a shape moves the same distance and direction. Any questions about the vocabulary? Translation? Okay, so let's jump down to question 1. So, graph each quadrilateral ABCD with vertices A, B, C, and D. So before you do anything, you notice there is no starting shape. The starting shape is going to come from these 4 vertices that were given. So we're going to go ahead and plot those 4 points to create our shape, and then we'll talk about the translation. So A is at -1, 2. So remember when we plot points, we go over and then up or down. So if we have -1, we go left 1, and then that 2 will be up 2. And then I'm going to label that with A. Okay, B is at -1, 5. So you're going to go left 1 and up 5. And then label it B. Okay, C is at 4, 6. So go right 4 and up 6. Okay, and D is at 4, 2, so go right 4 and up 2. Okay, so that is our pre-image. Before we do anything with it, that is our original figure. Have I lost anyone yet? You good? Okay, so here's where we kind of get into the new thing. So we have a list of those same 4 coordinates right here. Those are the exact same numbers you just plotted. What is new is this notation right here. This is what we call, I have a packet for you. That is our translation notation. So this tells me how we're going to change these 4 sets of coordinates. So for the x, I'm going to add 3 to each x number. And for the y numbers, I'm going to subtract 1 from each number. Does that kind of make sense? So I'm going to add 3 to all of those numbers. And for the right numbers, I'm going to subtract 1 from all of those numbers. Okay, so we can write that out. I'm not going to require this, but we can write this out like this. So I'm going to take that -1 that's there. Okay, everyone see where I got that -1 from? And then I'm going to add that 3 from the rule. And then put my comma. And then I'm going to take that 2 that was already there and then apply the y rule to it. So I'm going to subtract 1. So I add 3, subtract 1, and then here's where you can just then simplify it. So if you need to use your calculator, you can. If you don't, great. So -1 plus 3 is a +2, and 2 minus 1 is a +1. So that tells me where my new A prime, so when I say prime, I mean that little marking on that A. I guess I didn't explain that. So that little prime, this little marking by the A, that just means it's the second figure. So like, I don't get confused with, because if I label both of these A, it looks like it's the same point. But I'm distinguishing between the original A and the new A. Does that kind of make sense? Okay, so now let's go ahead and plot A prime. So A prime is at 2, +1. And then I'm going to label that A prime. Questions? Okay. So let's repeat that process then. We're going to do that again for B. So write down B prime. So we're going to take that -1 that's already there and add 3 to it. And then take that 5 that is already there and subtract 1 from it. And you simplify with your arithmetic. So we get -1 plus 3 is a +2. And 5 minus 1 is a 4. Okay, so you'll plot your point at 2, +4 for B prime. And sometimes your shapes are going to overlap, and that's totally fine. That definitely happens. Okay, do you guys want to try the next two yourselves? Okay, go ahead and try it out. Add 3, subtract 1 from those sets of numbers. Okay, so you're actually using this. So we added 3 here because of this. So you added 3 to it. So it's 4 plus 3. And then comma. shifting that 6 to the y spot, and then applying this a little bit. So okay, so that is how you translate a figure using the translation notation. Okay. What we're going to do now is kind of work backwards, sort of. And on question 2, we're given. Okay, I'm dropping ahead a little bit. Let's go back. So let's talk about in words. What happened to the shape? Like, how many was it shifted to the right, and how many was it shifted down? So let's look at it this way. So let's just count between C's. So it was shifted 1, 2, 3 to the right, and then it was shifted down 1. Now look back at the rule. Why do you think that rule makes sense? Right? So, yeah, since it was a plus 3, that's moving it right 3. And since it's down 1, that's a minus 1. So let's go down here and make a little kind of a cheat chart, if you will. So anytime you have x plus a number, that is a shift to the right. Okay, your figure is moving just straight across to the right. What happens when you have x minus a number? Exactly. So the x number is always left or right, just like when you plot points, right? When you plot a point, you go over left or right, and then you go up or down. So then the y numbers, if you have y plus, that is going to be a shift up. And if you have y minus a number, you're shifting your figure down. Okay, so on this first one, we're going to write this out with translation notation. So go ahead and write xy, just like we had up here in question 2, or question 1, it's going to look like this. So our goal is our answer to look like that. So we have xy, and then with an arrow. Okay, and then we're going to have kind of a bigger set of parentheses here for our x plus a number and y plus a number. Okay, so if we're moving to the left, that's going to be x minus, and we're moving 5. So we're going to have x minus 5. And then the y spot is always the up or down. So if we're moving up, is that a plus or a minus? Okay, so it'll be y plus 3. Questions about that? Okay, so what's different about B? Interesting, right? Okay, so we're still going to kind of do it the same way. So x, y, and then your arrow. Okay, so we're moving to the left. Again, so just like up here, that's going to be in the x spot. So you've got x minus 9. But they don't say anything about the y. Okay, so it's not going to be shifted up or down. But we can't just leave out the y from our coordinate. Like, we have to have x and y in our coordinate, so we just write y. And don't do anything with it. Okay, that y number is going to stay the same, but it's still there. Okay, so then C, 4 units right and 1 unit down. So x, y, with your arrow. Okay, so to the right, I would have x plus a number, which is going to be that 4. And then comma. And then 1 unit down, that's going to be in the y spot, which will be a minus sign. So y minus 1. Okay, and then that last one, just 3 units down. So you're not going to have anything in the x spot. Well, you do. You just have x. Right? And then it's just y minus 3.